Thanks everybody for attending this webinar today. This is the part 2 of customization for everybody. Part 1 was on CSS. This one we're going to be focusing on the possibilities with JavaScript and IDX Broker Pages, and even touching on some of the newer, heavier customization features. I won't go too in depth into any of this stuff. This is going to be more high level, like possibilities and examples. And there will be code, and the code will also be provided. So any of the code that I'm going to do today will be available on GitHub, so you can do the exact same thing or modify as you see fit. And then I'll also provide some links to resources if you're just getting started with JavaScript. There'll be some links at the end that I mentioned. So let's get going. Okay, so these are advanced customization techniques. This is more than just HTML and CSS. If you're not comfortable making these changes, please consider one of our developer partners. You can find a list of them on idxbroker.com/developers/search. There's plenty of developer partners who can make customizations. You'll have to check with them for their availability and pricing. That's not something we can keep track of all the time as it changes. I do recommend going there, and if you need somebody to do some of these advanced customizations on your pages. So today we are tackling JavaScript and the IDX Broker Pages. JavaScript is a very ubiquitous language across the internet. Almost every single website uses it. You can disable it in the browser, but almost nobody does because most of the internet won't work without it. It's used for a variety of things, front-end logic, all kinds of integrations, customizations, and it can also run server-side. So learning JavaScript is pretty much necessary for today's web development, and not so much in the past, and it is nice that you can apply these skills from the front end to the back end with Node.js, which is essentially just JavaScript running server side. So if you're not too well versed in JavaScript, I highly recommend diving into it. It's not too hard. It's just mostly just logic and syntax, which is most programming languages. And it does free you up from the restraints that, or I guess it opens more doors than CSS does. I should say it that way, because you can do things dynamically and apply logic, where CSS is pretty much just your styles. Why JavaScript is a question I get a lot. Why can't I do this in CSS and HTML? Why do I need to bring in a scripting language? And the answer is other HTML and CSS just aren't made to make logical decisions. For that kind of stuff, you need JavaScript. The other reason is JavaScript already runs in everyone's browser. You might as well take advantage of that power and write scripts to customize things in ways that you just aren't able to without it. So that's the really big why for JavaScript. So I'm not going to be showing too much on like how JavaScript works. This is just a very simple command here, console log. This will write why JavaScript to the console in your browser. If you haven't played with that, I recommend probably there's a couple great Chrome dev tools tutorials out there, and that really dive into the browser console and the developer tools in there. Those are also really great to keep up with as browsers change every few months, honestly. Like I said, you get advanced customization logic. Works in every browser. A lot of times you can reuse the code, and I find that to be the case with front-end JavaScript especially. You'll have a feature or a customization, and odds are somebody else is going to want it as well. Generally, when you're solving a problem for yourself, somebody else has that problem, and that's how things like GitHub and Stack Overflow were born, where people are just putting up solutions and reusing other people's code. There's tons of frameworks and resources available. JavaScript's a very mature language, and it applies to just about everything on the web. Those are some great features for JavaScript that really make it worth learning if you haven't already. So all the code that I'm going to be going through, my examples today, will be available on GitHub. If you need the link, just go ahead and shout it out in the questions, and we'll get the links sent to you. There'll be 2 links today. This repository, IDX Code Snippets, has more code than what I'm showing today, and I keep up on it. And pull requests are welcome if you have your own snippets that are useful. Like I said, that might solve a problem for someone else as well. Then feel free to do a pull request on GitHub. It's easy and fun to share code. So where to add JavaScript in IDX Broker is an important thing to tackle first. A lot of times you'll want to be tempted to just put it in your wrappers on your hosting for your pages, but that might not be the best. You can do it in the wrapper, like I said, but the subheader also works for some things. Those are the two places you can be able to add your JS, but how you choose those usually comes down to if you want the JavaScript to apply only to an IDX Broker pages or to every page that's associated with your website. The subheader might be the best option for that. That way it only loads on certain pages. You can use the subheader options we have to only load the subheader on certain page categories or certain page types. For example, you might have some JS, and I'll show some today, that only apply to details pages. So I would not put that in the wrapper because I really don't need it to run if it's not on the details page. For some other things, you might need to put in the wrapper because you want it across all the pages, or there may be parts of the page that you need to load first. So in that case, the wrapper would be in the footer, would be the best option. So it really varies on the project on which one of these 2 options you're going to choose for adding your JS. The other thing is this going to be something dynamic, or do you actually need logic? So if you don't need logic or something dynamic, CSS actually might be a better solution. You might want to change the location of something, and it might be tempting to use JavaScript to just grab the element and rewrite it somewhere else, but moving it with CSS might be a lighter option. To keep your page load times down, I would explore if CSS is a good idea first, before just going straight to JavaScript every single time. That being said, let's take a look at an example of bringing in an external feature. In this case, it's going to be Matterport. This is the 3D modeling feature. It's a service. It's cool. I see it a lot. I know Nailsuit Media uses it a lot, and they already are bringing it to the pages, and this is kind of my approach using JavaScript to bring it into IDX Broker pages specifically. There it is. So like I said, Matterport is being used by Glenn Tremaine at Nailsuit, and he's got it here underneath these remarks, which is great. My computer's loading slow because I'm running the webinar software. But yeah, you can see it's here, and we can now interact with his 3D model, and which is great, and it works awesome. I have a different approach. So this is my details page, and in this one, I wanted to make it a little bigger and move it up on the page using as little JavaScript as possible, and also make it easy to add these. So adding this iframe link, and that's what this is. This is an iframe of your 3D space. And I also did some CSS to position it higher up next to the primary photo, because I felt like if you have the 3D space, I really want you to use this 3D model to view the home, not necessarily just stare at the external pictures or a video. So this is just a sample, and I'll show you how I added this link, or this iframe. So this is the code I used, and I'll go through it line by line really quickly. So first thing I do is get the location. In this code, I want to be sure that I'm on an IDX page. The details page all have /IDX/ in them. Current URL is window location.href. That will give me where I'm at right now. And then if in there, in the index of current URL, it does meet my requirement of /IDX/, and the document has the class name IDX custom link, and this would be the first one of that class, because I believe that class is used more than once. And it is populated, so not equal null. Then I'm going to get the custom link by the class name again, and write an iframe with the source being the Matterport link. And the reason I'm using the custom link here, there's already a input for custom links on details pages. So I am able, and these are for featured listings or supplemental listings, so the listings that you control on your inside your IDX. So the idea is I put this into, I believe I put this one in the footer because I need that link to load. So I put this in there, and it runs, it checks if I've populated the custom link, and if so, rewrites part of the page to include this iframe. And I have some CSS waiting for that when that happens. And the reason I use the custom link, which is just this input here, is because now that my script rests in my wrapper, to add more Matterport links as properties come and go, I only need to add a link to the custom URL link, and that's it. And my script will then pick that up and write in the iframe if applicable. And if it's not populated, then it won't do anything, and it's not a property details page that I own. It's probably one of the ones from the MLS, and that way I'm showing off only when I need it and not trying to run it all the time. So again, that script is available if you want to check it out. This is my approach to adding the Matterport, or I guess any iframe. You could do YouTube videos, it doesn't matter. Whatever you put in that custom link URL input will then show up on the front end on that property, and that script will pick it up and write the iframe to the page. That was just vanilla JavaScript, just plain JS. There was nothing, no frameworks involved, but there are frameworks involved in the IDX pages. The one that exists already that you can leverage if you don't want to write just plain JavaScript is jQuery. Always loaded in IDX pages, and also by default loaded in a lot of CMSs like WordPress and I believe Drupal and Joomla too. So you can leverage jQuery if you want to, and I'm going to show a jQuery example because when leveraging jQuery in the IDX pages, we do something a little bit different. The example for here will be a 404 details page with jQuery. So when your property details page that you're looking for no longer exists, this is my default, nothing there, just whatever IDX Broker provides. We're sorry, the property does not seem to exist. So, and that's all fine and good, and it's got a call to action here to perform a new search and a contact form if you want to talk more. But this is something that I would probably customize. And so I have a custom image here. The property is not found, and this was a suggestion from one of my coworkers and a literal interpretation of property not found. So now I can add with the script, I can add whatever I want here. So it could be an image, it could be an animation, it could be literally anything that JavaScript can write. So to get this, I did use jQuery. For my custom details message, I do have to apply a little bit of HTML. So I add a div here that's empty because I need something to write to that is custom. So this all goes in the subheader for this example. I also declare my image that I want to do here. And then down here where I get to the actual JavaScript, you'll see these C data tags that's added by our system when you add JavaScript to a custom subheader. In those subheaders, you do add your JavaScript to the HTML option that turns off the WYSIWYG, all the controls in TinyMCE, and then you just paste in whatever you want there, and these notes will get added so that way our system knows that this is script to run and not regular text. In here, we use IDX instead of the normal $sign that jQuery uses, and this is to avoid conflicts as IDX uses the $sign. And you can get around that, but this is usually the easiest way, is to use something else. A lot of times developers will use the actual name jQuery instead of the $sign when using jQuery on our details page. We do that here for the document when it's ready. And then if the missing property alert length is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and add the HTML. That is what we do. Again, code available. This code is available on GitHub if you want to create your own custom 404 pages. This will only load on the 404 page, and it will only load if those the HTML is there. Won't affect your other pages. You can use the options in IDX Broker to apply this to your 404s. Those are both two examples of using JavaScript and jQuery to do some modifications of certain parts of pages, right? The first example, we add an iframe. In the second example, we rewrite part of the page more to our liking. But essentially, the page itself really isn't changed entirely too much, but you can change the page a lot. And this would be with custom templates. This is much heavier customization, as you can see on the screen here. This involves more back-end process. The notation with the curly brace and the percent signs you see there. This is Twig, and Twig is a templating language for PHP. So in this control panel here, editor, you see the CSS as well. You can add JavaScript right into a page template, and you can move things around in the page template using Twig. For this, this is much heavier. This is, if you're intro to JavaScript, I suggest playing with the first two examples. But if you want to do something much heavier, I can do a whole webinar on just the Twig because it's so in depth. You get so much more control over the page. Here's an example of using Twig and using the custom templates that are available to developer partners only to customize the results page. So here's my results page. I have moved the properties to the left side. I have brought in a map that has the different tiles, and I brought in my own pins for them. I also have the ability to add more control and make these two elements interact with each other. So if I click on the pin, it goes to the property that I was clicking on. It's true of any of the props. So doing this in just JavaScript in the subheader would probably be very hacky and a lot of JS, but doing it in the custom template is just writing my own JavaScript for this map and the elements that are brought in. So I can connect them easily with JavaScript. And again, this code is available too, but this does require custom templates to get this level of customization. So all the code available today on GitHub. This one is for the template specific. If you want to get into custom templates, please let us know if you want someone here to do a webinar on the custom templates to get this further level of customization. And we can see about getting that kind of webinar together. If you need to start with JavaScript, these are some great resources. W3 Schools is great. And there's plenty on YouTube. There's plenty more than this out there. Like I said, JavaScript's mature. I mean, if you have any questions on applying your JavaScript, I would probably talk to your developer partner, and they can reach out to us if there's a conflict or anything in their scripts. But definitely get started with JavaScript if you're interested in developing any customizable stuff on the internet today, because it's everywhere. If there's any questions, please shoot them out at us. And if not, that is fine. I'll stay online or stay on air for a little while longer and field any questions. But that's kind of the high level of where JavaScript is with IDX Broker today. Some examples of stuff you can do right now using JavaScript, and kind of some best practices there of where to apply your JavaScript to make it work properly. Please play with those examples. Let us know any feedback. And thanks for attending today's webinar.